Tonight, parents of prospective grade 1 and grade 8 learners in Gauteng will be able to access the online admissions for next year from this Thursday. Education MEC Matome Chiloane says the province is ready for these admissions, of course, for the coming academic year. However, there have been challenges that the department has been dealing with, including the appointment of school governing bodies in the country, as well as the building of new infrastructure and some challenges resulting in delays in the building of those infrastructure projects. We'll talk to him about these and many other issues. But you can weigh in tonight, 072-110-5584. The MEC believes there is a silent majority that is really happy with this online system, how it's processing applications and how it is placing learners, saying there are minor glitches, but that doesn't warrant the cancellation of the system. What are your thoughts tonight? Let's weigh in on that conversation. MEC, good to have you, and thank you very much for your time this evening. Said that the system of education in Gauteng grows by 2.5%, which means 65,000 or so per annum are coming into the system in Gauteng, which is what you're going to be facing in this new admissions process. Are you ready for that? Did you put plans in place to deal with that? Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening to your viewers. Yeah, it is a big challenge. That's why we then took a decision as a department to have a multi-pronged approach in increasing what we call classroom capacity, spaces. So we have a couple of programs that are running concurrently. We have what we call self-build, where we give skills money to build additional classroom capacity so that we can absorb learners, which has been quite successful. We are also providing mobiles in schools. We've also built satellite schools. We've also built schools. We're building schools. Obviously, the pace had slowed in the past couple of years, but I can tell you now that we are going to be quicker in the number of schools that we're building. We're targeting no less than 15 schools per year at the minimum. And we know where those schools currently for this the academic year towards the end of the year and early next year. Yeah. So the approach, we are hoping that obviously over time it will begin to push back, because for quite some time we have not been building schools and we've been pushed back. So we want to push this challenge of classroom space back.
Yeah. So, I mean, that issue of availability of space is multi-pronged, but the big issue that you are dealing with is the demographic changes, right? Where those in the townships want to go and study in previously white schools. Even though 75% still remain in the township and 50% are at Indian and colored schools. However, you've been trying to discourage this, and you say we're not going to build new schools in the suburbs. We are going to pump money in improving the township schools. How is that strategy working?
No, it's coming well. It's coming very well. I mean, we have model schools that we are proud of. I mean, we've improved infrastructure. For example, in the heart of Chiloane, we have a school there, Chiloane Source School of Specialization. It's got a swimming pool. It's got a K53 license area. It's got all these courts. It's got all these. So there's a lot. I mean, it's literally, you could say it's a former Model C school, but it's in the township in terms of infrastructure quality, the quality of teaching and learning, the performance of the school, etc. So we are encouraging, that's why we always encourage parents that the quality of township schools has improved so much in the last 30 years that the gap and the best model that we utilize to check the gaps is the difference between former Model C school, the matric pass rate, and the township school. It has narrowed down to about 8 to 7%. So literally, there's not really much difference if we speak about learner outcomes. So that's why we always encourage parents that we are improving township schools, we're investing in township schools, and that's where we pump a lot of our money in township schools. And also, you must know that we need space to build schools, and largely we find space in the townships and we're building there.
Yeah, so exactly. You're saying part of the challenge is land in the suburbs that is not available for you to build new schools. And the other then challenge, I mean, in 2022, your predecessor was dealing with 7 schools that were delayed by contractors and other challenges. I don't know where that particular figure sits today, but what I do know, in February, one of the secondary schools that you were building was the Simunye Secondary School, 50% completed. Others questioning whether by the 31st of March, which has now passed, that school would have been ready and fully occupied by the learners. Where are we as far as those delays and backlogs in finishing of projects is concerned?
Yes, we do have a challenge with contractor capacity, and what we have said to infrastructure, well, the implementing agents, because we are not using DID alone, but I know that school is being built by infrastructure development in the province. We're also using PPSA and also looking to get other implementing agents to assist us to build more schools. We have said that obviously these delays are very harmful and are putting pressure on us as a department. So in an instance, what we did, how we concluded Maibuye, we said, give us the school and let's see if we can finish it on time, collaboratively, working with infrastructure. They do certain aspects of the school, we do other aspects. And we're able to complete Maibuye, what was left, within 4 months. So we have noted there are those schools, we're aware, and Simunye is one of those schools. I believe now the contractor has even left site and the contractor has been terminated. And the problem with such is that obviously the next issue is the legal battle between the department and the contractor, and which in most cases delays this. So we need to really look into who do we appoint, and really we need to also look at the ethics of some of these contractors. So now, for example, if you don't complete a project when we've appointed you, we are going to blacklist you as a province.
Yeah. You're not expecting challenges there, because that has been the criticism, to say, well, the best that you do is you cancel the contract, but the people still stay on your database and you give them more work. It doesn't make sense. Why would you give them more work when they didn't finish the previous project? So very poor consequence management, so to speak.
It's true. So that's why now we've taken this move that contractors that don't complete their projects, we terminate them. Contractors that do shoddy works, we blacklist them. So we are moving in that direction so that we really get the best and serious from these service providers that we source to assist us to build infrastructure.
The other approach that you would have wanted to take in addressing the availability of space question is dealing with single medium schools. You said this is no longer sustainable. Of course, there's a lot of pushback there, especially in Afrikaans medium schools. How are you navigating that space?
Look, firstly, how it needs to be understood, especially I know that there are not many single medium schools in the province now, as I can tell you that. Most are dual. If it's Afrikaans, you find that there's also English as well that's there as well. So there are not many, there's quite few, very few, very, very few. So with the Bella Bill, as you are aware, that it's on the table of the president and it's been passed by parliament, we're just waiting for him to sign it, then we move with dealing with the language policy. But with their pushbacks, I always tell them that, look, if we as education, we're growing a nation. You know, we're developing a nation, and then you can't build a nation if people can't play and live together. And our kids need to play and live together, and that needs to be understood. So, and they need to understand, obviously, the cultural differences and appreciate them. So that's the argument I always place before them. And I can tell you, there's no school that's really doesn't want what do you call this? An intercultural integration. And majority of these schools that initially used to be single medium, they are slowly, the learner population has dropped so much that they're no longer sustainable to keep them alone. So we have to then bring in more learners. And that's what has been happening. If you look at some of the former higher schools and world schools, they've got a large population of African children in those schools.
So let's come back then to the online system. I mean, you know as well as I know that by Thursday, that particular system is going to be oversubscribed. There's almost no question about it, that by Thursday, a school that would take 200 people will have 1,000 parents gunning for space in that particular school. You have said yourself, if the administrative efficacy of the system can be proven, parents will be happy. What are you doing to address one of the biggest challenges is, one, I apply for a particular school, I get rejected, and I get sent far, far away where I can't even afford to take my child there. Two, proper communication with the parents when they seek clarity on the process and where it is.
Yeah, no, firstly, look, there won't be any system glitch, I can tell you that much. And the system, the improvements are such that the system can process no less than 50 to 60,000 applications a minute. So the probability of a system crash, we are not anticipating it. The biggest challenge that we always have is choice and preference of parents of schools. That's why we're saying, give us 5 options. You know, some parents just put one school and leave it. And then when the child doesn't get space in that school, we put them somewhere else, utilizing the home address as a barometer to say, now this is how far we can place the child. Then the parents come back and appeal. So we always tell parents, them, choose 5 schools, 3 minimum, maximum of 5, so that it give us more options. And 2 schools that will be very happy with any of them should we place your child there. So that's what we have. Communication, we've improved it. As and when you log on and you create a profile, there's a communication, you get an SMS. Every step you complete, you get an SMS. Up until the application is complete, you get an SMS. When you don't complete an application and leave it hanging, you'll always get communication to remind you that you need to complete your application. These are the documents that are missing. So we have improved communication with parents to also remind them. And hence we say, make sure you have a reliable number that you always look at as and when the SMS comes in, because that number is the one that will always be utilizing to communicate with you.
Yeah. Speaking of a reliable number, the buying of addresses closer to a school of choice seems to be... In fact, let me just ask you, how rife is this thing? Because it seems to be something that is reported, and some schools are beginning to take initiatives by themselves to verify. We can talk about that also, whether that is a good approach. If so, why is the department not doing it itself? But let's start about the question of buying addresses. How rife is this practice?
Gauteng is everybody's home. Let's start there. Parents from across the country would want to bring their children to the province, and they use different people. Sometimes they use their family members' address, and etc. So some schools have taken initiative to go to the address to really go and find out that does this child stay there. And it's a process that I have to announce here that we as the Department of Education, we have approved it, that schools must go and verify. They can go and verify rather the addresses and confirm if actually it is true that the children stay there and it's a reliable address. So some schools have taken that initiative. In terms of how rife, I can't say how rife it is, but it does exist.
Yeah, and you don't see that creating some kind of conflict between the parents and the schools themselves when it is the schools that would need to carry that? Who will carry that responsibility of verification, and what would be the legal implications?
No, the school just go and verify that does the child stay here, is the family there? That's all, and there's nothing really wrong with that. Just to verify the residence of the child. Because remember, that's why we always encourage parents to use their home address. You see, kids must go to school closer to home. That's the best. That's the best option that we always encourage parents, because what that does, it puts pressure, financial burden on parents. Because if they put a child in a school in a historically model C suburban school and they stay in the township, they need to pay transport. So that financial burden also created, it increased the cost of living. So when the child is closer to home, they can walk to school. It's much easier, it's much safer, it's much quicker. And the child doesn't need to get exhausted. And it also reduces the burden on us on scholar transport, because we are spending a lot of money on scholar transport. But in scholar transport, most of the time, we provide it based on the distance from one community to the nearest school. But in some instances, there are situations where kids go to a different school when they could go to a closer school and they use our services.
Right. Let's then look at the other issues. In terms of norms and standards, I believe Gauteng, we don't have pediatricians. If we did, it was probably one or two schools. But I think you had pretty much eradicated pediatricians. Your challenge was still asbestos schools. How far are you as far as eradicating those?
Yeah, in this term, we want to turn Gauteng into a construction site. We want to eradicate asbestos schools. We still have them, that's true. We want to eradicate mobile schools. We want to build more brick and mortar schools in new township development areas, and also conclude schools that we've been promising to our communities across the province. I'm sure you know quite enough. And also those incomplete projects. So the goal of this term is to just build, and build, because that's the only way we can deal with the growing system of our province.
So build, and build. There are some who are saying 100 new schools is what you actually need in the system to eradicate pressures. And if you're saying 15 every year, at least for the next 5 years, we're looking at 75. So you should be looking okay.
No, yeah, look, that's what I'm saying. A minimum. We spoke about a minimum. But we used to build up to 28 schools a year. We've done that. So we are moving towards that particular range of capacity of building the schools. And we have pressure. Therefore, we have to build schools. We don't have a choice. It's not something that we can say we can. There's no other way to mitigate what we are going through except building schools, ensuring that satellites are operational, ensuring that mobiles are in. And you don't want to get to a point where the whole school is just buildings and mobiles, and there's no play area, because a school is a development center. There needs to be an area where kids can walk and play and really begin to interact, build their interpersonal skills. So we have to build schools, and this is what we're intending to do. We are going to be building schools at large quantities for the next 5 years.
Yeah. Then the other issue, I mean, you've just mentioned it, interpersonal relations. It's an ugly thing that you've had to deal with. I think a school in Brakpan, there's an issue in Reche Park, Eldorado Park, that you've got to go in and deal with now and again. The issues of social cohesion. Others being driven by SGBs, not wanting a particular principle of a particular race. Others being driven by the interactions of school pupils themselves when it comes to race relations. How are you approaching that in this administration?
And that's why I'm saying that kids need to play together, to live together, and grow together, and then we build a nation. We do have programs. I mean, the important aspect and tool that will be utilized, we use to really bring kids together, it's the extramural activities, sports, all the other activities, whether it's drama, whether it's all these social activities that we really get kids. So part of the the program in the next term is to make sure that every child participates in one extramural or the other. Every child. Whether you do sports, you run, you do drama, you do whatever that's available in the school, but every child needs to do something. But more importantly, obviously, we need to improve the learner safety, because the biggest challenge that we have is the community. So that's why we call communities on board. Communities need to protect schools, need to make sure that schools are safe haven at all times. And that's why we have the biggest challenge. So, but in terms of social cohesion, we've really advanced as a nation, as you know. So there are splinters there and there, but it's nothing that is extreme.
MEC, we appreciate your time and indulging us this evening. MEC for Education in Gauteng, there Matome Chiloane.